All right, let's see here. We're exactly 6 minutes after, so we will be getting going real soon here. Let's get a little mic check from Herc. I heard you chiming in there a minute ago. Let's say hello, Herc.
Hey guys, how's everybody doing? I'm nice and loud, I think. I think I got my room figured out finally.
Yeah, I noticed that the last time we were talking on voice, you sounded a lot better than when you first got in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to figure shit out again. I don't know what the hell happened there, but
Mike, you should be here. It's none of that.
Mike, it's going to be how to use all that. Actually, you know what? This question, I'm going to preface this question right now, just live, everybody. What's this webinar about? What are we doing here? Mike just kind of asked because he said he owns a bunch of Supremacy products. Guys, we met Brian Willie and hung out with Brian Willie, Todd and I, when we were in Vegas the last time, and we really got to chatting a lot. Brian's part of the LC2 group, local client takeover group, and he's absolute badass with maps. We were able to sit in at the LCT event. That's why we were in Vegas and got a whole bunch of really killer maps training, really great stuff. But what Brian had mentioned is that Project Supremacy in particular is a very important part of his strategy in getting maps listings, and part of maps listings really has nothing to do with optimizing your maps profile, okay? And that's another big misconception. We love misconceptions because we like setting shit straight. It's not really about setting your maps up correctly, it's about setting your site up correctly and structuring your site correctly and doing the right thing to your site. And that's what Brian's really going to teach you guys today. But the bonus of it all is Brian actually uses Supremacy products as well to help him achieve that. So what we're going to train you on today, what Brian's going to train you on today, is how he's able to do all this stuff using Supremacy products. So we're going to have a webinar today about that, how to get legitimate properties set up, get ranked in the maps, even multiple rankings in the maps using Supremacy products. Tomorrow, there's going to be another webinar where Brian's going to come back on and teach you guys how to make money with these strategies. Okay, and we're also going to talk about SERPTech and how that plays into the whole deal, as well as keyword supremacy and stuff like that. So that's what these webinars are going to be about specifically. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yes.
Derek, just stick. Yes. Yeah, if you already own maps, if you already own maps training, if you already own Supremacy products, I mean, you can leave. I don't suggest it. I highly suggest you stay here because this is very 100% unique training, guys. This isn't one thing being taught one way. This is the combination of Supremacy and what Brian's knowledge is. So if you guys already have all those, great, awesome. Stick around. You're not going to get this training or this webinar anywhere else. So definitely stay on this webinar. Brian's going to do a killer job of showing you guys some really cool stuff.
All right, that sounds great, Herc. Great preface there. Appreciate that. Let's go ahead and bring Brian on. Brian, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, sir. Sounding loud and clear. Can everybody else out there hear Brian well?
Hey guys, how you doing? I got a new mic as well. They used to tell me I sounded like a little girl on these webinars from my old literally from my old headset mic. They're like, I can hear you kind of screechy in the background, so I finally plugged in a new mic, and voila, what can we do?
Yeah, it sounds really good. So I think, Herc, do you have the screen right now?
I do. I'm going to pass it off, Brian.
Whenever you're ready. You guys ready? We're exactly 10 minutes past. I say it's time we get this show on the road.
To roll. I'm going to go fast. All right, give me 1 second. I'm going to show my screen here. Let me know when you guys can see my screen.
I can.
All right. Can you see the slides there?
Yeah, everyone's in. Yeah.
All right, guys. I'm going to get rolling here. Let me just make sure I can get this thing to move. Okay, cool. All right. So what I want to talk about is we're going to dive heavily into how Project Supremacy is a part of my overall strategy. But Herc said it best. I love clearing up misconceptions. So we're going to dive into a ton of misconceptions related to maps. Basically, most people's maps knowledge is, from what I find, is kind of like 5 or 6 years outdated. And there's this kind of misconception that everything is controlled by quote-unquote optimizing your listing. And so we're going to really get into the Possum update that shook things up. If you're not familiar, we'll cover that, so don't worry. The Google Possum update that hit in September really shook the maps world up last September. And so I titled this presentation, Creating Predictability and Profit in an Era of Maps, Unpredictability, and Chaos. Some of you have probably been on some of my webinars before, and there'll be some familiarity there, but trust me, stick around, because I am going to be covering some new things that have just hit that you really need to understand. So really quickly, let me do a little bit of housekeeping. You guys have been on lots of webinars, I'm sure. Do the usual stuff. Make sure you just pay close attention. Don't let Skype and all that stuff interrupt you. I was on a webinar with Matt Diggity the other day where my cat started screaming in the background, and somebody was asking me. In fact, Matt, I think, asked me, why were you, it's like, when was the last time you fed that damn cat? I'm like, well, I don't know. Every once in a while I manage to feed him. So, it gets distracting. So I'm going to try to go really fast here so we can stick around that hour and a half mark, so we have plenty of time for Q&A, okay? So I know what I just put on the screen is kind of a big promise, but my intention is for you to walk away really understanding how to rank in a 3-pack of maps every time, even if you tried everything before and failed miserably. And I know maps seems very disconnected for people, especially after September. Things seem to be going really well for most SEOs up until about the September timeframe when Possum hit, and then boom, this, what I refer to as this seeming disconnection, seeming chaos hit. And I'm going to show you where it's actually pretty controllable. It's predictable. It just seems like it's disconnected. I'm going to give a free bonus for everyone who sticks around till the end. I'm going to be moving as fast as I can. We got a ton of stuff to go through here. So don't feel like you have to write things down unless that's the way you learn the best. I'm going to make sure you get the slides for anybody who sticks around till the end of this entire presentation. So really quickly, let's talk about who the heck am I? If you don't know me, you're probably wondering, why would I even listen to you on maps? You've got Herc and Todd, who have done some amazing stuff on maps with Project Supremacy, and like I said, I've integrated that entire strategy as a part of my maps program. It's part of the core of what I teach. So who am I? Why would you even listen to me? Been a local marketer since 2006, really since 2003, starting with kind of the beginning of AdWords, but I really ramped it up heavily into local SEO 2006. And then as soon as Google Places started, probably 8 or 9 years ago, I really started trying to figure out what makes maps tick. And really I got my start by being hired by a local law firm. I'm actually a lawyer, so don't hold that against me. Unless you really want to. But I actually had a local law firm say, we want to hire you, because I had started really figuring out marketing, local marketing. And this firm was doing $175,000 a year gross. So if you know anything about law firms, that's not that much money, right? This guy actually quit his job and moved out to Texas to start a firm, and bought a firm that was doing $175,000 a year. So I came in and we started just revamping everything from an SEO maps perspective, started raking in $2 million a year. Within 4 years it was up to $1.2 million a year, and now he's just over $2 million a year, and it's him, a legal secretary, and a paralegal. So needless to say, he was thrilled, still a client to this day, and started spreading the word. I got the bug because I figured out that I could have an impact on people's lives, right, from a marketing perspective, which is a lot of fun, and at the same time make a shitload of money, which is really cool. I went on to co-found Local Client Takeover. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Local Client Takeover. My buddy Mark Luckenbaugh and I co-founded that a couple of years back. It is the largest local SEO and marketing group in the world. I think we're about to hit 18,000 members right now. I've trained over 500 agencies worldwide on ranking processes and have helped fix hundreds of maps listings. I'm actually known as the Maps Fixer, which sounds kind of like DC insider talk, but that's what I do really, is I fix maps listings. I've been a sought-after speaker and consultant on all things maps for many, many years now. The other thing too is I'm a member of different masterminds with some of the biggest marketers in the world, and I encourage you guys to really dive into masterminds. I know Todd and Herc are members of big masterminds. That's where it's at, guys. You really need to connect yourself with people who are not only like-minded, but can help you go to a different level. So I'm in masterminds with people like ClickFunnels co-founder Dylan Jones. He's kind of the guy behind Russell Brunson that creates the look and feel of ClickFunnels. Ben Atkins, Davin Michaels, good friend of mine here in Vegas, New York Times best-selling author, runs the largest outsourcing VA agency in the world called 123 Employee. Matt Diggy Dirk, you guys know those guys, I'm sure a lot of you do. Glenn from ViperChill, Perry Belcher, Roland Frazier may ring a bell, digital marketer, if you've heard a little thing called Traffic and Conversion Summit. They are Ryan Dice's partners in digital marketer. I'm in a mastermind with those guys. Going to hang out in Vegas with them coming up here very shortly. So here's a picture, terrible, shitty picture of me that my wife smacks. This is why my wife smacks me for posture. On stage at the LCT event, Herc and Todd were out there hanging out with us. Had a great time. That's just kind of the back of the room. That's Matt Diggity. That's us probably out having too many drinks. Diggity. You've got Diggy Dirk, though they are not the same person, although they share a similar name. And I put a little fun picture here. Where are Todd and Herc? No, they're not in that tiny little pool. I think they're inside having some drinks. I don't know what you guys were doing then, but this was kind of our after party.
I think we were over on the other. I think we were over out the corner talking to Mark.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, so we had about, I don't know, 80, 90 people up in this private penthouse suite afterwards. It was a lot of fun. I always give Herc a little bit of shit on webinars for his Canadian accent, and then I meet him in person and realize he sounds freaking Scottish in person. I have no idea what that means, but all right. So really quickly, just some results that I've achieved for clients. So these are 3-pack results, and guys, these are clients, many of which I've had for 7 years or more, and I'm going to show you how you can do the same thing. The reason they stick around so long is because they never leave maps. When you get the phone ringing and keep it ringing and hand them a map strategy that works, maps is where it's at, all right? And so I've had clients who've never left me. Literally have some clients who won't even make any marketing moves until they call me first, which I find kind of hilarious, but it's still flattering nonetheless that they're sticking around that long. So here's a big divorce client, population 5.6 million, number 2 on maps. Another divorce attorney, different city, 1.2 million population, number 2. Bankruptcy attorney, huge keyword, big AdWords keyword. Doing really well on maps for literally 7 years. It's one of my clients that's been around for 7 years. Let's talk about different niches. I primarily do lawyer. I don't do lawyers. Actually, I apologize. You can edit that part out if you guys like. I primarily work with lawyers. Let's back up here. And but people say, well, what about non-lawyers? So I've worked with auto repair shops, huge population. We're talking massive population here. Number 2 on maps. Psychologist, totally different niche right there. Endodontist, right? Drug rehab. So that's a big niche if you guys are not in that, whether it's pay per lead, lead gen, whatever it is you're going to do, they pay a lot of money to get ranked, especially when the phone is ringing, because the lifetime value of a patient for drug rehab is massive. Commercial real estate, here's another one. Just has done well. Again, 7-8 years, has never budged from maps, doing really well. So here's what I want you to kind of take away is that this took me a long time to figure this stuff out. It's not like I just flipped a switch and said, oh, I'm going to rank people on maps. In the early days, it was very easy. You threw up a listing, you had some citations, and that's all it took. But as time went on with maps, there was a lot to figure out. You really had to figure out what was making maps work. So, I learned sort of the hard way, but what I want you to understand after this presentation is how you can actually cheat your way to the top. So one of the big kind of overall themes of what I want to talk about is why are most local SEOs doing well organically, but then they kind of fail at maps? And I want to talk to you about exactly what you can do to fix that. And a lot of it has to do with that seeming disconnection, right? That seeming chaos that I talked about that hit in September of last year, where things were tightly connected organically. If you were ranked organically, very well. You tended to rank very well in maps, but then everything sort of seemed to have fallen apart in September, so we'll dive into that. All right, so here's kind of the big topics I want to cover. We're going to talk about where we've come from, what's changed, why that matters to you. In order to understand where things went and where things I think are headed, you really need to understand where we came from. And this, by the way, plays into tomorrow's webinar heavily in terms of if you understand, number one, and what I show you tomorrow, this is where the money's at, guys. I'm going to show you how you can connect the dots basically from figuring out where we were at before and where things went to. It creates a trail, in other words, that you can follow very easily to go out and get clients and make money. We're going to talk about why Google thinks all of your clients' businesses are restaurants and other local shit. I don't know why I bleep that out when I'm on a Herc and Todd webinar. I don't need to bleep stuff out. But you have to understand this, guys, if you're going to win the 3-pack war. Google is heavily treating you just like a pizza restaurant. And this makes probably no sense to you now, but it will by the end of this presentation. The other thing is people tend to fall into the why, the because I told you truths trap. And this is actually your worst enemy in ranking in a 3-pack. And I want to teach you what to do about it. Again, this doesn't make sense to you now, but it will, I promise you. We're going to talk about categorically denying categories, GMB categories, and how I get big wins in as little as 3 minutes. So this is kind of a fun little demo that we can do. And we're going to get into that a little bit more tomorrow about how you can use this to your advantage to get people on the phone, impress them, and make some money with this thing. And then we're going to complete it with my 3-step plan to success every time. Really the 3 big things that you need to rank on maps. All right? So let's get rolling here. Sorry, I think.
Sorry, there we go. I just wanted to interrupt for one quick second. I just saw one question come through, and it just made me think. I do want to be thorough with everybody. Can you guys give me a 1 if you know what the map pack listings are, and a 2 if you do not? So there's a few 2s in there. Yeah, I know it seems like an obvious question, or most people should know this, but just for those who don't, guys, just forgive me for a second. Brian, do you want to head over to Google and show them what a map pack listing looks like?
Yeah, let me do that really quickly. Give me 1 second. I'm going to exit out of this. Let me see if it'll let me exit out of this.
Sorry to break your flow there, but guys, basically, the 3-pack, the snack pack, the local listings in Google, and the reason why they're important, guys, is because they have a ton of trust, they have a ton of credibility, and the phone numbers show up on them, and they're typically the top 3 ranking results in local search. Okay,
all right, guys. So this is it right here. Yeah, so this is the map pack. It's also known as the snack pack, the 3-pack. The reason is that it used to be a 7 or 10-pack for many years, and it's been almost 2 years now where it switched over to a 3-pack, meaning that in order to get into these spots right here, you really had to up your game. Before, you had to do very well, but at least you had 7 bites at the apple, so to speak, right? 2 years ago, it switched over to a 3-pack, and in some cases, we see a 2-pack with a paid ad. More likely, or more often, it's actually 1 paid ad plus a 3-pack. This is prime real estate. I mean, no doubt about it. This is what makes the phone ring. And when we dive into money-making ways that you can go after clients tomorrow, they understand this. Because, this is still important, but it's not, the entire world has moved to mobile. The entire world has moved to a system where reviews are everything, right? I mean, just think of Yelp. I tell people that I talk to people about it this way. I literally don't make any decisions in life, which is kind of scary, but a lot of people are like me, restaurants, anything, without looking at reviews first, all right? And so you can't even get to the point where somebody's going to see a review if you're not here. So what the snack pack is, if you're not familiar with it, or the 3-pack, is it's an at-a-glance snapshot where people can read reviews, visit your website, or even more importantly, sometimes just pick up the phone and call you. And that's what we're after a lot of times. Did that kind of answer the question, Hurt?
Yes.
There. Okay, cool.
Yeah, sorry, sometimes it takes me a while to unmute. But yeah, I just wanted, just for the few people there that don't understand it, it's good to know.
No worries. Okay, so guys, let's talk about where maps evolve from and why that's even important to you. Really quickly, I'm going to give you a brief history of maps in about a minute, okay? So there was a thing called Google Places back in the very, very early days. It was all about local, all about a place. Your entire ability to get ranked on maps at that point was, hey, you kind of throw up an optimized listing. Maybe you had a pulse, maybe you didn't really matter. And you had more what are called citations than the next person, right? So your name, address, and phone number appeared on directory style sites like Yelp, Superpages, Angie's List, you name it, right? There's hundreds of these sites. But what happened was Google realized very quickly in Google's terms that you can game the system very easily. In fact, local businesses were gaming the system. There weren't I wouldn't say there weren't a ton of local SEOs 8 or 9 years ago. They were just kind of starting to come on the scene. SEOs tended to do more affiliate stuff. Local became, more popular probably 5 years ago. So SEOs, to the extent they existed, and business owners were able to game the system by, hey, the person in spot number 7 has 123 citations. I'm going to go get 125, and guess what happened? You went up a spot, right? Or you went up to the top. And that's all it took. So probably a couple of years in, Google started to realize that's not a good user experience. What do we do? So here's what they did. They did what's called blending the algorithm. So they blended the organic algorithm. The entire algorithm that controlled organic was sort of a separate algorithm than what controlled maps. And essentially what started to happen was your ability to get into maps after Google switched up that algorithm and blended the maps algorithm together with organic started to depend on what did you do on your site that was helping you get ranked better. How are you ranking in general, which had to do with on-page optimization. At that point, probably, your ability to get ranked organically was maybe only 20% on-page optimization. And the rest was pure links. I mean, you could spam the hell out of links back then. And I'm going to show you why it's completely flipped, where your ability to get ranked in maps now is about 80% what you do on your site and only about 5% with what you do with your listing. So the blended algorithm is important to understand because what happened is that your ability to get ranked now depended on what did you do on your site, which in turn ranked you higher organically, which as you ranked higher organically, typically towards the top of page 1, you would appear in Maps Pack. So it started to become a combination of the two algorithms. So hence the name blended algorithm. The reason it sounds boring, the reason it's important for you, we're going to cover on tomorrow's webinar, because when you know this and you can identify it, and you can identify where it used to be and it is no longer there, you can actually make money with this stuff. You can go grab new clients all day long with this, okay? So hopefully I have your attention with that because that's where the money's made. So understand that the blended algorithm created predictability. If you were ranked in the top 3 spots organically, there was a damn good chance you were going to rank in the top 7 spots and then the top 3 spots in the Maps Pack. There was a direct correlation with that, in fact. So we had this like 6 years of this seeming predictability where we could kind of count on that. Hey, just get my spot rank or my listing or my website ranking a little bit higher, and boom, I'm in the Maps Pack, right? That's predictability. And then Possum hits. That's a new algorithmic shift, or not so new now. It really is almost a year old, but people still don't understand it, where it created seeming chaos and seeming unpredictability, where you couldn't count on that blended algorithm anymore. Or could you? All right, so I get asked this question a lot, is a blended algorithm really gone? Most people think that it is, meaning that they think, oh, there's no connection whatsoever between where you're ranked organically and where your Maps Pack listing is. But let's look at a couple examples to see if that's really true. All right, so let's play a little game here. You guys can just, if you spot this, just type yes or no into the chat box. But Sarasota, let's start with chiropractor, just kind of a generic example. We'll stick with the city of Sarasota. The question is a blended algorithm in play, yes or no? meaning that do the 3-pack results directly or indirectly somehow track the top results organically? So Sarasota Chiropractor, blended algorithm, yes or no? So here I put yes, and I'm not going to go through every single result here, but essentially there's a direct correlation with at least 2 of these players right here. And what we want to figure out is what about the 3rd player in the middle, Florida Chiropractic? Where are those guys? They're a little bit further down here. So that's them right there. So they're just a little bit further down the page, meaning that the blended algorithm is in fact fully intact. So even though most people will say no, that, if you look at a lot of results, there seems to be a total disconnection. There's all these guys showing up in maps that are on page 5. Why is that happening? We're going to talk about that. But the one thing you need to understand is that in some cases, your ability to rank in maps still depends a little bit on where you're ranked organically. All right? So it's not completely disconnected. This one, in fact, is completely intact. Let's look at a dentist example. Again, the question to you is the blended algorithm in play, yes or no? So I've got yes for the first result, yes for the second result, a little further down the page, right? What about the 3rd result? I said no, WTF, right? And I know I probably shouldn't cuss on these webinars because Hurt gets on me about cussing. Don't you, Hurt? All right, Bayview Dental Associates. Where are those guys ranked in relation to where they're ranked in maps? They're 3 in maps. Where are they? Where are they organically? And I put there on page 3 just so we don't have to go through every single page. Why is that happening? We're going to cover that, all right? So the blended algorithm might be partially intact, right? So here's page 3. They're way down here on page 3. How in the hell did they make their way up in the maps pack when under a blended algorithm, they would have needed to be in the top couple spots on page 1? Why did that happen? All right, so very common results, guys, with the blended algorithm is that 2 players are on page 1 while 1 player kind of seemingly came from nowhere and they displaced someone else. So this is the key takeaway that I want you to understand, and we'll dive into this tomorrow about how you can profit from this. But great for the person who made their way into the 3-pack who came out of nowhere, right? Give those guys a cookie. But what we want to know is who got displaced, who was there before. Under the old blended algorithm concept, if somebody was at or near the top and should have been in maps, that means they were displaced. Why were they displaced? Can you identify that? What can you do to fix that? And that's how you can start to profit from it. So there's a lot of ways that someone could have been displaced from maps. There's things called filtering under the Possum update. I'll show you that in just a second. There's no longer needing to be in the city center. I'm going to show you what that means as well in just a minute. Either way, it equals an opportunity, money-making opportunity, all right? So again, tomorrow we'll dive into different ways to make money from this. Someone else's pain, I hate to say it, can be your gain. Like you can swoop in and basically say, look, I know you used to be taking down phone calls all day long, and I now have a way to identify this and show them exactly how you can fix this, all right? So hopefully that makes sense. Let's really quickly look at a service niche example. I know some of you do a lot of services. Give me one if you do purely services out there, plumbers, tree trimmers, roofers, all that good stuff. Lots of you guys do that. Lots of you guys do lead gen sites. Guess what? You need to understand this very clearly. There's a lot more you need to understand as well about having believable sites, believable listings, but we won't get into that. So plumber in Sarasota. Is the blended algorithm in play? Yes or no? Same question. Is it tightly related to that? Top 3 results. No. So I'll spare you going through every single page, but essentially only 1 business in the pack is also on page 1. 2 players in this case came out of nowhere and snuck their way into, or I should say forced their way into the 3-pack, where you wouldn't see that before. Now in some cases with services you would see a little bit more of that, all right? Not entirely though. In other words, it wasn't as tightly connected to that blended algorithm as, say, lawyers, dentists, physical, storefront types of businesses. But in general, you still needed to be at or near the top to make your way in. Now we're seeing a big disconnection, okay? So I get this question a lot now. Very recently I'm getting this question over and over. Is there even going to be a 3-pack at all with Google Home Services rolling out? So give me one if you guys are familiar with home services in Google and what they're doing. All right, I'm seeing lots of ones come through. So I see some no's too. So really quickly, Google is rolling out a service to directly compete with things like Home Advisor and Angie's List. What they understood, probably just like they did with Google Plus several years late, where Facebook had already won the game, was that Angie's List and Home Advisor and all these other big sites were taking away their spots, right? So Google wanted to figure out, how can we monetize this? Whenever you think of anything that Google does, all roads in your mind should lead to AdWords. Every single thing that they do should lead, your mind should instantly go to, if they say user experience, you go left and say, nope, what can we do for our shareholders to create more profit based on AdWords, okay? So what they're doing here is a new version of AdWords called Google Home Services. So really, I'm going to show you this in just one second. Let's talk about the new Google Guaranteed under Home Services. And if you do any kind of pay-per-lead, lead gen, any kind of like legitimate client-side home services where you actually work with a client, you're going to have to up your game and up it very quickly. And I'm going to show you why, okay? So this is what it looks like. San Francisco Plumber was where, I believe, the first spot that they actually rolled this out. And what we're hearing is that by the end of the year, they're going to be rolling this out in all markets for about 5 different niches, okay? So you see that 30 plumbers serving San Francisco? You see that Google Guaranteed? If you click on more plumbers, what's going to happen is almost the equivalent of when you click on more places in the Maps pack. The only difference is Google is rewarding people for pay to play. People can pay their way to the top and get this Google Guaranteed sign. Now Google tells you that they vet them, they screen them harder, and maybe they do. Like maybe they actually will require business paperwork, all these different things to make sure you're not a lead gen company, right? So what does that mean to you? Let me show you really quickly. If Google is guaranteeing results up here to make sure that they can make money from AdWords, what does that mean for the 3-pack? Some people say the 3-pack will go away. Now, they've done tests on this already. Very recently, they've done tests on this, and it's not testing well, where they've taken away the 3-pack. So my guess is the 3-pack, non-paid 3-pack, is here to stay, even in home services. But let me show you what's going to change. All right? So what do you guys see here? See those big arrows? They all show their addresses. Why is that? So normally what you would see is home service businesses, right? Service area businesses, as we call them. Google's advice to you was always you hide the address when you set up your GMB listing. Period. End of story. We can flag you for spam if you don't, right? And you set a radius around that. And so Google will lie to you. They'll say hide your address, set a radius, and maybe you did all those things. You set a 20-mile radius, and Google lulls you into this false sense of belief that you're magically going to somehow rank in that entire radius. But guess what's happening now? Google Guaranteed has essentially made Google have to kind of put their money where their mouth is. In other words, they don't want to get caught in a lie, so to speak. So if they're guaranteeing people in AdWords, what did they do with people down here in the 3-pack? Especially, like, let's say if you do pay-per-lead, lead gen, where you have maybe you have a fake address that you've been using. Well, here's the answer, is that they're starting to show real addresses. Why are they doing that? My theory is, and again, this is only theory, but I think this is going to prove to be true, is that typically only the larger players in the service industry have a real address. So if you look in like the plumbing niche, for instance, it might be like the Roto-Rooters or the Mr. Rooters. Now you're not seeing them right now, but you are seeing people that actually have not hidden their addresses. So keep that in mind, is that in order to compete with, or not compete, but kind of make Google seem believable, hey, we guarantee these people in our paid spots, they want to make sure these people are the most believable and most trustworthy spots. Who tends to have that? People with addresses, all right? Keep that in mind. If you do any kind of paper lead, you're going to have to up your game and potentially get addresses. All right, so let's chat about what changed with Possum September 1st, 2006, and why Google now thinks that every business is actually a pizza place. All right, so I say this kind of facetiously, but 5 changes occurred with Possum, and lucky for us, only all 5 of them are extremely major. And Actually, all three of them have one thing in common. And I actually say three things in common: location, location, location. All right, so Possum was a massive shift. It was a big, big algorithmic shift that impacted only the maps listings. And what's surprising is that most people didn't talk about it. It got quietly written about and then swept under the rug, and most people didn't even understand it. All right, I want to make you understand it because it impacts every aspect of how you rank locally. So Possum change number one: the location of the searcher, especially on a mobile device, matters more than ever. So unless you can convince Google otherwise, and we'll talk a little bit more on that later, Google is literally treating all of your clients like you're a pizza place. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is if you have a mobile device and you're out driving around, right, or you're out getting your oil changed or something, and you're looking for something, like let's say you're looking for a pizza restaurant. Does it make sense, yes or no? Give me a 1 in the chat for yes, if it makes sense to, hey Google, show me pizza places right near me. I'm hungry. I don't want to drive 20 minutes across town. I don't want to then wait 40 minutes to get in and another 20 minutes for my pizza. Does that make sense? Yeah, absolutely, right? That makes sense for a pizza restaurant. Now give me a 2 in the chat if, on the other hand, let's say that you're being audited, God forbid, by the IRS, and you need like a heavy-hitting IRS lawyer to go to bat for you. Do you care that you're sitting in that oil change place? Hey, Google, show me an IRS lawyer who's within 5 minutes of me. Do you care, yes or no? Give me a 2 or no. All right, cool. I'm getting lots of 2s, right? We don't give a shit. We don't care. We want the best, not the closest. But Google is treating every single one of your clients, every single one of your pay-per-lead businesses, lead gen businesses, I don't care what you do, just as though they're the pizza place, right? Show me the closest, not the best. Now, will Google's algorithm correct itself? Will the Possum algorithm become smarter? Probably, right? Over time, it'll probably get smarter, but we've seen in the past that Google's algorithms tend to take sometimes 2 and 3 years to sort themselves out, to get smarter, in other words, to show people more options, right? I don't care if you show me people 5 minutes away. Now, here's the interesting thing. I predicted this 2-3 years ago, and no, I'm not a psychic. It goes back to actual testing that I did. I test everything like crazy on maps because, again, I want to see what makes maps tick. And so I started getting all these crazy phone calls. It started with one phone call from a client who said, hey, Brian, like 5 minutes ago I was sitting up on my desktop and I typed in major keyword. We all have those clients, right, who are like obsessed with some vanity keyword they want to rank for. They're like, oh, I'm ranking #1 in maps. And then I went out to my parking lot and I disappeared on my mobile phone. Oh, and then I went 5 minutes across town and now I'm back. Then I went to my house and then I typed it in again on my mobile phone. It's gone again. What in the hell's going on? And I literally thought, oh, this is just, one, isolated example, clients being a client, kind of pissed off. And then I started getting probably, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 of these calls in a week. And after I went, oh shit, what do? I realized Google was testing the algorithm. They were trying to figure out how can we show more relevant searches near the location of the user on a mobile device? Because what I was seeing was more fixed things coming through on desktop. In other words, rankings weren't changing that much on desktop, but they're changing like crazy on mobile. So what happened was this all became the algorithm known as Possum. All right? They've been testing it for years. They've just been trying to get better and better at it. As we see with the pizza example, did they get that good at it? Answer, no, right? They didn't get that good at it. Maybe they will. All right, so this is something that nobody's really talking about that I'm going to show you in action right now. You can go look, don't do it now, obviously, but you can read articles about Possum. Nobody's talking about this change that happened. And part of the change of Possum is a massive disconnection on the types of maps listings or the results we get that are shown on desktop versus mobile network versus mobile Wi-Fi versus, hey, I decided to go a couple minutes across town on my mobile network, and now I get a different result. So I'm going to show you this in a second, but here's the thing that I want you to understand. Very important takeaway here is, how many of you guys use SERP tracking tools out there? I'm sure a bunch of you use SERP tracking tools, right? To show your clients that here's where you're ranking. And a lot of those include maps positioning. Well, guess what? In the end, what matters is what searchers in town see, not what we see, not what reporting tools report. None of those are accurate. There's no way in hell they can be accurate when I show you what I'm going to show you right now. All right? So a little while back, I decided to do a little experiment where I set my fat butt down into my desktop chair, as I do pretty much all day long, every day, much to the dismay of my very skinny wife, who's a personal trainer. And I decided, let's do a little experiment. Let's look for some major keywords and do a desktop capture on my Wi-Fi, and then let's immediately, without moving my fat butt out of my chair, connect it to the same Wi-Fi, only this time on a mobile device, would I get a different result. Oh, and then let's disconnect from Wi-Fi and just check the mobile network. Will I get a different result? Okay, so that's how it started. So keep in mind, this is me not moving from my chair. Las Vegas criminal defense, criminal lawyer, major keyword term. Here's the 3-pack. We have LV criminal defense, Joel Mann, Las Vegas defense group. Cool. All right, here's me on mobile Wi-Fi. Okay, we have Joel Mann. Do you see Joel Mann there anymore? No. Do you see Brian Smith back here? No. So now Brian Smith and Douglas Crawford are complete shifts. Brand new maps back. I haven't moved an inch, guys, not 1 inch. All right? All right, let's look at mobile network. All I did was, again, Brian's fat butt sitting in the chair, disconnected from mobile Wi-Fi. What are we seeing now? Well, now we see Brian Smith and Joel Mann back again, who were present under the desktop capture, at least Joel Mann was, but it's a different result now. I haven't moved an inch. All right, so let's try something different. Las Vegas Cosmetic Dentist. So we've got exceptional dentistry, aesthetic dentistry, Las Vegas Center for Cosmetic Dentistry, desktop. Brian not moving. Now we've got exceptional dentistry, aesthetic dentistry, which we saw before. Third result is different. Las Vegas Cosmetic Dentist, Dr. Glenn something something, right? Different result. So 2 players are back. 1 is totally different. I didn't move. Mobile network, I've disconnected from Wi-Fi. Now we've got Jonathan White added to the mix. Where did he come from? I didn't move, right? So what's going on here? So I decided, in the spirit of science, I start getting into my car, running off with my mobile phone in my hand, and my wife's like, where are you going? And I said, science, baby, science. So I drove across town, 3-4 minutes away, 5 minutes away. I drove over near my office across town, obviously disconnected from Wi-Fi. I'm not on Wi-Fi, I'm on the mobile network. I wanted to see if I was going to get a different result. So again, we see, I think, some of the same results from the original desktop. That's cool, right? It's good for Lori Block, good for aesthetic dentistry. Las Vegas Center for Cosmetic Dentistry is now back. I think they were on our first desktop result, yep. Right? So, but it's still a different set of results. So even though we see some of the same players, they're there sometimes, not there sometimes. Okay? Let's talk about chiropractor. Here's a chiropractic example. Same experiment, guys. Desktop capture. Here's our maps pack result. Brian didn't move. Connected to the same Wi-Fi. Totally different result. All 3 results are completely different. See that? I didn't move. All 3 results are 100% different. Mobile network, sitting in my chair, disconnected from Wi-Fi. I think our 1-star neck cracker, Las Vegas Chiropractic Associates, remind me not to go to them. They're there from the desktop, right? But now we've got the Joint Chiropractic, Lake Mead Chiropractic, 2 new results. What in the hell is going on? Now I drove across town again, and we see some of those players back there, but now we've got Chiropractic Healing Center. All right? So we're seeing this big disconnection of layered maps directions, sometimes dozens, sometimes 50, sometimes 100, where when you move around the corner, it's totally different. What does that mean to you and your clients? It means unpredictability. It means that they see themselves ranking in certain parts of town and not in others, and they freak out. Okay, so we're going to talk about what you can do about that. So let's dive into possum changes number 2 and 3. Filtering. All right, give me a 1 if you guys have heard of possum filtering, if you've seen this in action. Anybody seen possum filtering? You're familiar with this? What this even means? All right, so filtering is essentially Google, and I'm using big giant air quotes here, good user experience. Here's how it's supposed to work. If you're a personal injury lawyer and you share a building with 4 other personal injury lawyers, Google will tell you it's not a good user experience to show all 4 personal injury lawyers on maps. Even if all things being equal, they should be ranking very highly. What they're doing is they're choosing to show one based on them being deemed to be the most relevant. Okay, so we'll talk about what makes you more relevant when I get to my kind of 3 big things just a little bit here. So how it's supposed to work is they will filter you out based on actual address. 4 personal injury lawyers share a building. If they were all there before, now what happens is they'll show one. If I go to more places in maps and I search, what I would normally expect to see is them to be dropped down a little bit in more places. What Google has done is taken it a step further and has actually hidden them. Okay, so hence the name possum. It's like they're playing dead. All right, it's not that they're gone; they're playing dead. I'll show you tomorrow how you unfilter people and how you can actually use that to your benefit to make money. But so what if they're playing dead? So what if they're hidden? They're as good as gone. They're not seen by their potential client base, where potentially they were seen before, getting calls all day long and not making money. So being filtered means they're as good as dead, as good as gone. You can't find them. So it's supposed to be based on actual address, but Google has actually taken it probably 10 steps further, and it could be based on actual or perceived affiliation. So if they perceive an affiliation between a dentist that sits on one block and an orthodontist who's not a different type of dentist who sits on another part of the block, they might filter out the orthodontist because they're not as relevant in Google's eyes as that dentist. I've seen it go so far as nobody ever gets in trouble in Vegas, but bail bonds, right? Well, Herc and Todd, I don't even know if you guys got in trouble in Vegas or not. I know Todd didn't for sure because his wife was sitting right next to him. Herc, I don't think ever gets in trouble. He's squeaky, and he's a married boy now. But bail bonds in Vegas. I had a client who was filtered, and we figured out that none of them shared a brand name. There's 5 of these guys all on the same street, not even near each other on the same street, by the way. None shared a brand name, none shared an address, yet 4 of them were filtered. They were only showing 1 because Google is perceiving an affiliation between the bail bondsman that has the most relevancy and who's showing and the 4 who aren't. All right, scary stuff, but we'll talk about different things you can do to overcome that. All right, one more thing, location of the city center not being an issue. And then I say again facetiously, unless you've spent years of time, money, and effort to nab a coveted city center address only to be screwed. So again, it's location driven, meaning that for years, your ability to get ranked in maps had to do with how close were you, how close was your office to downtown. Google was kind of dumb. Filled with scientists, still kind of dumb. The algorithm itself could not figure out that you were located where you said you were located unless you were literally downtown. And then under Possum, that changed, where you no longer needed to be downtown. Guess what happened? People that weren't downtown were rewarded by displacing somebody else, by being thrown into the 3-pack like I showed you before. All right? So I ask a question here. Are you guys sensing a pattern? If you sense a pattern, type what pattern you're seeing in the chat box. Let me see what pattern you guys are getting here. What's going on here? Location, chaos, definitely chaos. Location, location. Exactly. Exactly. So essentially location, geography to be exact, right? Geo has become the #1 factor that drives Possum. Your location, especially on a mobile device, dictates everything and will dictate everything from now until kingdom come, right? So how do we control that stuff? We're going to talk about that. So geo is extremely important. All right, guys. So let's move into training part 2. I know a lot of you were anxious to hear about the because I told you Truett's trap. So what is this because I told you Truett's trap, and why is it your worst enemy in ranking in the 3-pack? And I also want you to understand what you can do about it. So I ask people on coaching calls all the time, what is a citation? So do me a favor, let me know what do you think a citation is? Just let me know what you think it is into a citation, what an actual citation is. Nap across the web. Nap. Exactly right, except you're partially wrong. Okay? Let me explain to you why you're partially wrong. A citation truly is your name, address, and phone number appearing on high authority sites like Yelp, that's 100% true. But when it comes to ranking in GMB, it's a little bit different. We want to look at what's the real definition or the real meaning of citation. In other words, why did the nerds over at Google decide to call that a citation? Why did we as SEOs start to refer to these things as citations over the last 10 years? It's because it's a proof point, guys. It's essentially a way of showing a reference, all right? Think of it like a link back to a site. A link is just kind of a form of a citation. It's a vouch for another site, just like a citation is a vouch or a proof point of another site. So let me give you an example. If I was a prosecuting attorney prosecuting somebody for murder, I wouldn't walk into a freaking courtroom and point to the defendant and tell the judge, that guy's guilty because I said he's guilty, right? Or let's say that I write you know, a nonfiction book on the ketogenic diet, right? Something that I tried recently and got off of very quickly because I felt like shit, although I do need to go back on it. But I wouldn't write something on the keto diet and say, hey, the keto diet is the best because I said it's the best, right? I'd say look at Appendix A for the citation, right? So what we need to do is we need to start thinking of citations not just as your name, address, and phone number, because that matches up. That's one form of a citation. What we need to think of is proof points, element points, that you have your listing over on one side, your GMB listing. What are we going to do to prove that? And more importantly, how do we prove that in structure on our site? And then how do we prove that again off our site? So we have to think of citations as much more than name, address, and phone number as a proof point. It's a big deal. It's basically the equivalent of I told you it's true, right? My example of a prosecuting attorney or a book writer saying, hey, I told you it's true, so it must be true. That's not enough for Google. You can't just say I told you it's true. You have to prove it. All right? So stop telling GMB because I told you it's true inside of your listing and then having no proof. You have no backup anywhere on your site, off your site to prove it. You have to prove it to them over and over and over again. So one of the ways that you prove it is things like Project Supremacy, schema data, right? That's a proof point, guys. All that stuff that is bound up inside of that structured data markup is a way of proving to Google that what you said in your listing is in fact true. That's one proof element. And then, you know, if you have same as, you guys have seen the Project Supremacy tool where you've got all your social profiles, and that's essentially what that's creating is same as data, which is a way of saying these authority sites are directly related to my site, and now I'm proving it to Google in a forced, structured way without waiting for Google, you know, waiting around for 2 years for Google to figure this out, that my Facebook and YouTube profile are somehow related, or that my name, address, and phone number on my site in text is somehow related to what I have in my listing. No, I'm going to prove it in something like Project Supremacy, right? And then I'm going to do it over and over again with all these additional proof points that you really need in structure on your site. So this is, I can't overemphasize this enough. It's so important to understand this. All right, let's talk about selecting appropriate categories and showing up in as little as 3 minutes. And then we're going to dive into my 3 top proof elements that I use to get rankings, right? Basically the 3 things that you need to show Google that you mean business, right? That you're proving things every step of the way. All right, so there's 3 parts to this, and I probably should have put number 3 in the number 1 spot, to be honest, but you have to prove you are who you say you are, which is your brand. All right? Number 2, and we'll break these down in just a second. I just want to show you what we're going to cover really quickly. Number 2, you do what you say you do, which is your niche. And so this extends, by the way, into your category selection in GMB. How many of you understand how important category selection in GMB actually is? Or how many of you are kind of satisfied with just choosing 1 or 2 categories and you move on? Let me know. What I found is that most people are satisfied with 1 or 2 categories. So your niche actually extends into your category selection, and then proving that category selection on your site, off your site, over and over and over again. All right? So this is a big, big deal. Number 3, which probably again should have been number 1, you are located where you say you're located. This is by far the most important part of the equation. Remember, guys, we're in local. all right? GMB is and always has been driven by local. It was called Google Places, for God's sake. It was called Google Plus Local. It's always been about a place. It's always been about local. So why and how, as SEOs, have we gotten so distracted and made everything about let's send as many PBNs with just niche-based links, for instance. Let's not make this site anything about local. Let's make it all about niche. When really everything, especially after Possum, is geographically driven. I just proved that to you, right? With my little scientific experiment about going across town, everything is locally driven. So why ignore this? You literally can't ignore this, or you won't rank. So let's talk about brand. Again, you want to match your brand, right? One of the big things, and this is just kind of like I'm going to give you this right now. You can go put this into action right now. Put your exact brand in your title tag. On single location sites on your homepage, because typically your GMB listing points to your homepage, and on multi-location sites on every place that you have a claim listing only. Your exact brand name in your title tag, that is a massive ranking signal for GMB. Why is that? Because it's a proof element. Again, we don't treat our GMB listing as an island. It's this thing somehow that magically sits over here and has all this control because I quote unquote optimized it. Doesn't work that way. 8 years ago, it worked that way. Now you have to prove it. One of the big things you can prove is you need to be seen as a real brand. All right. Another way you can prove that you're a real brand is branded networks. Real brands actually have things called brand mentions where there's no link. There's just people out all over the web talking about brand. Right? Do you think Amazon, for instance, always has a link back to their site? Probably not, right? They have thousands and thousands of people saying the word Amazon or Amazon.com that's never linked. It's a brand mention. Not to get too nerdy on you, that's part of Google's patent, right? They look for things like brand mentions. So why wouldn't you have your brand being talked about on different network sites? Like Web 2.0s, PBNs, social sites, all over the web, all right? Let's talk about niche. Probably, another extremely important thing right after geo, category selection. So I told you how a simple selection of proper categories in GMB can get you ranked, and I'm going to prove this to you tomorrow live, okay? How a simple selection can get you ranked very, very quickly, sometimes in 3 seconds, all right? Sometimes it's a couple hours, sometimes it's a couple minutes. It happens almost every time. Why is that? Because a category in and of itself is such a strong ranking signal that it essentially can get you part of the way there. So I'm not going to tell you that it will get you into the 3-pack, but here's the way that it works. You have no shot at the 3-pack if you never selected the category, right? At all. I mean, essentially you can search for yourself, and if you're not there at all, good luck ranking a keyword around that category if you haven't even chosen it. So it's a strong ranking signal in and of itself. So how does this come about? Well, again, I'm on these $1,800 consulting calls all the time, where a lot of the time, for whatever reason, there's all these dentist SEOs, dental SEOs everywhere. It must pay tons of money, right? And so I'll ask people the following question. You work with dentists, yeah? Of course, right? What categories do you have? Well, I have dentists and I have dental clinic. And like, well, does your guy do cosmetic dentist? Yes. Go choose cosmetic dentist. Does he do any kind of like root canal work? Yes. Go choose endodontist. And so on and so on. And suddenly what we find is that 2 categories became 9, and they didn't select them. And literally just by selecting them, when people are in a position to rank, they're already doing well for say other categories, but forgot to just select the category, it's such a strong ranking signal, it can pop you into the 3-pack. And they're amazed. And so I'm going to show you tomorrow how this works to literally make you money by amazing your clients. You can show them this kind of trick on the phone where in 3 seconds sometimes you can start ranking for the category. Does that mean you're going to rank for every category every keyword related to that category? No. But it's a start, and again, it's something that you're going to anchor your keywords to that category, and that will allow you down the line to just crush it with every keyword, all right? And then I talk about proof of your categories, assigning a theme to your categories, or retheming them. And I'll talk more on that tomorrow. That's not super important, but there is a way to take a category that might not seem relevant to you guys that is highly relevant. Why? Because the category in and of itself is a major ranking signal. All right? So if you can anchor your keywords to the category that you want, we can start to rank for keywords that we want. All right? So we'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow. So geo, guys, let's dive into geo. The single most important ranking signal in local, period, end of story. We're in local. I just proved to you over and over that everything is geographically related. Does that mean that you don't need niche and brand? No, you do. You absolutely do. But the most important thing is proof that you're located where you say you are. Most people will start and stop with telling Google in their GMB listing and then citations, and that's it. And then the smart people have done things like with Project Supremacy, and they geotag their photos, right? And then maybe they share those photos on photo sharing sites, or they do whatever with them, right? And the smart people will do things like adding in properly structured schema data, like you can do through PS2. It extends beyond that. You need to really prove out that you're located where you say you are. And here's the thing, citations are great, but they have less authority. Why? Because everybody has gone to the citation bandwagon. You've got to go above and beyond that to rank in maps. So if you do have any, if you do citations, I recommend obviously get the normal ones that your competitors have. That's great. But spend any real money on geo-specific citations. We're in geo. Why would, just like a link, if you're building a link, where are you building that link on a PBN? In context, typically, right? That link resides in context. What's the context here? Geo. So people talk about, thematic relevancy and topical relevancy. The topic can be geo. People forget that. This is going to help you really avoid the because I told you it's trap by matching your geo everywhere. Very important. So little bonus tip for you guys. Again, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but really only 5% of what you do in your GMB listing has anything at all to do with your ability to rank in maps. I know that comes as a shock to most of you. It comes as a big shock to clients that I get on the phone with to train, and I'll lead with that. I'll tell them, I'm like, you need to set aside any preconceived notion you have about maps and go along for the ride with me, because what you have right now obviously isn't working or you wouldn't be on the phone with me, right? So it's a little like tough love situation in the front of a call, but this is a hard thing for people to like let go of, that, hey, I optimized my listing, right? I geotagged my photos, I uploaded those to GMB, and I'm good. 80% of what you do and how you rank has to do with how you optimize on page, and not just traditional organic on page optimization, how you do it in structure. All right? So there is a structure to things. Project Supremacy for schema is a form of structure. Herc and Todd could have never created that, and there might not be such a thing as schema where you would have your name, address, and phone number sitting in text somewhere at the bottom of your footer, and maybe Google understands that. Google the crawlers, not Google the humans, understand that, or maybe they don't, right? What we're doing is we're forcing things. When we put things in structure in a way that Google wants to see things, which is what I'm teaching you inside of Agency Black, I'm going to teach you that 80%, exactly how you set up that structure, all right? And there is a complete system to that, where everything needs to be structured in a way that forces Google's crawlers to understand that you're now the most relevant player. Screw everybody else that, maybe you were filtered before and now you're not, and the other 4 people are, right? So that's how this works. 80% is your ability to optimize and structure correctly. Of this 80%, I would say 50% of that is geo ranking signals. It's that important. Without it, it's extremely hard to rank, period. All right, so let's recap really quickly what we've learned today. We've learned about the blended algorithm. It's still intact in many searches, so don't lose sight of that. I'm going to show you tomorrow how we can use it to make some money. Understanding where you came from will show you where we're at now and identify who's been displaced and how to make money off that. All right, the whole world we know, obviously, has gone mobile. Took Google a little while to catch on in terms of geolocation, but Google's finally recognized this and created an entire algorithm called Possum And so everything that you do has to involve a very large element of geographic relevance. Number three, there are 3 parts of winning the maps game, and you have to get all 3 of them right: brand, niche, and geo. And if you miss any of these, you do so at your own peril. Number 4, probably one of the most important things is don't treat your GMB listing as an island. Stop playing the because I told you true Google game, right? Told you it's true in maps, but I'm going to do nothing to prove it. Stop playing that game. Remember that a citation is a proof element, and it's not just what we think of as name, address, and phone number. Everything you do from here on out with maps, treat as the definition of a citation, a proof element, to help get you ranked, all right? That's when maps goes from unpredictable to predictable. That's why we see the seeming disconnection and how we overcome it by proving ourselves over and over again. All right, number 5. What you see as far as rankings in your city, on your rank tracking tools, SERP tracking tools, all that stuff, they don't matter, guys. There's dozens and dozens of versions of maps. I just showed you that live, depending on the type of device search from, mobile, Wi-Fi, non-Wi-Fi, driving across town. There's dozens to hundreds of variations of maps, all right? So the name of the game is getting to be seen as the most relevant player all across town. All right. The way that you do that is to get more and more geographically relevant in the eyes of Google. Without it, you can't expect to show up on maps for more than maybe a handful of terms and a handful of locations. But if you do it, it like literally the whole world opens up to you, and phone calls start flooding in, which keeps your clients happy, which keeps you hired, which means you can, you've got just a constant influx of pay per lead, calls that are coming in, you name it. Number 6, only about 5% of your ability to rank has literally anything at all to do with optimizing your actual listing. So the real magic happens on site in structure, including using things like Project Supremacy 2. That's a structured form of data. What we're doing here is taking that to a different level, like the other parts of the equation that you need to really rank in maps post-possum. All right, guys? Okay, really quickly, I know for a lot of you, time is short. I really appreciate you coming out on the webinar today. And I wanted to obviously make sure I put in as much into the training info, into the first half of this training as I possibly could. All right, so really quickly again, we had a very limited time together. Hopefully you got a lot out of this training. We went through 2 parts of the training. I've got a lot more. And again, I mentioned earlier, I've got a brand new training called Maps Lift Off Agency Black. I'm just going to run through this really quickly. I know a bunch of you have been getting in. I really appreciate that. This is a really killer training. You can see again here, Matthew occupying all 3 spots. This guy's just a lead gen beast, right? I mean, he's taking 3 sites and using the tactics that I'm doing and getting 3 sites ranked in maps. So he's literally dominating all 3 spots, 2 out of 3 for another keyword. Andy, multi-million-dollar agency, high competition keywords for personal injury, criminal lawyers. That's all he deals with. His clients that pay him typically $7,500 to $10,000 a month. Just crushes it on maps all day long. Frank, got $5,000 in recurring revenue from what I taught him in maps. In 6 weeks, he started ranking number 1. Jeff, I'm just going to run through these. Nathan, I've known for years and have helped him work on map stuff for years and years. He has been in the number 1 or number 2 spot for at least 7 or 8 years using the techniques that I teach in Agency Black. Heather is the Willy Bomb. So now I've become known as the Willy Bomb. But you can see where the spike went off essentially when she started implementing the stuff that I taught her. And it means a lot, right? It's not just, again, ranking for ranking purposes. It's cool, but guess what happens when you rank? Total views go up. Total actions from those views go up. People pick up the phone, start calling. People go nuts. Your clients feel it, right? They instantly will tell you they're getting more phone calls. That's what we want out of this. Not rankings for ranking's sakes, all right? So these charts are cool. They're impressive. I like seeing them. But the real value is what does that do on the other end? Which is it makes the phone ring. All right, Diggy, big marketer. I've trained him many times on map stuff. He owns a 7-figure marketing agency. Does a lot of local stuff. Monique, only person that has ever intimidated me, only because she came on my call with 25 of her staff members up in Washington. Very sharp lady. Get to know Monique. Does big business. David, very well-known marketer. He's saying the prices of steel, content's incredibly valuable. Jed, another really great marketer, is basically telling you just stay away so that people don't learn this stuff. Shame on you, Jed. All right, so Stephanie, definitely one of the most impressive courses. Adrian is basically saying, get it now while I'm feeling generous. Look, guys, I've thought about raising this to $1,000, and instead it's getting big, and so I'm going to close it down, and I may end up doing this just as like small group coaching or one-on-one stuff. It's just gotten crazy. So 9:15, this thing is closing down, so Adrian's not wrong. We got Mike, Edward, two completely different niches, just killing it, right? Physical therapy was totally stuck for 6 months at spot 8 to 10, and then now number 3 in maps, 1 to 3 for other keyword terms, 4 weeks. Tree service moved up very, very quickly. Mike, who by the way is a maps guy too, saying when he is having a bad day and feeling a little blue, he cheers himself up by logging into my course. So this guy goes by Emmy. He's a really cool guy. Chatted with him the other day. This is just kind of funny, but he told me when I chatted with him, he's like, I really mean it. He's been through all these other SEO courses. He said it's worth more than 9 other SEO courses. The core modules are worth 5 times, the bonuses, and the bonuses are worth double the price that I'm charging. This guy uses a trick that I teach at Agency Black to go and impress a client. I'm not sure I haven't followed up with him if he got that client or not, but this stuff works to go and actually make money, which is cool. This guy started moving up really, really fast into the #1 position. And here's just again some people that have messaged me. This guy here, Chad, spent a couple days after a call that I did with him, and he's happy to report major ranking increases. By the way, this was a big, tough term, a locksmith term, which if you do any lead gen stuff, that's a hard term to make stick. All right, so Maps Lift Off Agency Black, I'm going to run you guys through it one more time really quickly, and then we're going to take some Q&A. $17.97 value, that's not a made-up value. I actually charge $1,800 to do this live for 4 and 5 hours on the phone. I don't do it as much anymore because I started losing my voice. And so this is actually better than my live training because I've distilled this way down into really every fix that I've ever done. Every session I've ever done, I was able to finally put this into a training program that gives you the benefit of that. So when you log in, if you only do services stuff, yeah, you need to watch the initial modules that apply to everything, but let's say you're stuck because you pick up a services client or you only do services and you want to learn the couple tricks that you need for services. Well, now I've got it all carved out because I've worked with so many service businesses. The site structure is totally different. Or you've got a lawyer or a dentist or somebody who was single location, now they're multi-location. Crap, what do? I've got it all covered, right? That site setup is totally different. Remember, 80% of the site setup is your ability to rank in maps done in structure. So it's better than live because live I can only cover so much stuff. We're only going to train on 1 or 2 sites and we can't get to every variation of things. If you want all the different variations, it's all covered in Agency Black. All right, #1 bonus, geolocation on-site domination training, again, $497 value. This is the secret sauce, guys. This is an entirely different bonus carved out. You're going to learn exactly what I do on-site, how I structure geographically relevant supporting pages, which almost nobody does. And if they do it in this weird way that I find treats them almost as orphan pages where they don't have any real authority. So I'm going to show you how I interlink these, how I structure them, where I place them, where they point to, what you need to do to make them tick, all right? So this is a really cool thing. This is one of the major components that gets you to be the most geographically relevant. Multiplier training. Again, this is one thing that I actually thought about withholding from the training only because my biggest clients are the only people I ever showed this to, but I don't want to withhold this kind of information because first off, I'm not a douchebag, although hopefully some of you are not. Oh yeah, you're a douchebag. I just want to make sure you get everything that you need, okay? This is something, though, that I might take down, guys. I might literally snap to my senses and take this down because people don't understand this. Like, it's fun to rank for a couple keywords and get your phone ringing for a couple keywords. I'm going to show you how you force this, all right? How you can force dozens, sometimes 50, sometimes 100 variation of a single keyword or a keyword set, all right? And imagine if you've got, remember my dentist example where they have 9 categories. There's all these keywords that go with those categories. Now imagine that you're ranking for, 20 to 50 for each category / keyword set. And what happens is your phone rings like crazy, all right? So that's the fun part in this bonus, the secret keyword multiplier training. All right, on-site supporting page structure, $5.97 value. We talked about why most SEOs fail to rank in maps. You can rank all day long in organic, but where the action is and where the phone rings is you really have to get ranked in maps, right? And then I know, Herc's going to talk tomorrow about SERPTech, how you can take that to the next level on top of this. But you do need to have your core stuff ranked in maps. And so why do most sites fail to get ranked? They don't prove it to Google, just like I showed you. They have that mentality of, hey, I told you so, Google, but then you don't prove it to them. Prove it to them over and over again. So what I do in this bonus is I break out my exact process. Here's the types of stuff that I do on site for supporting pages. And supporting pages, if you're not familiar with it, if you don't build them, they're hugely important to your ability to get ranked. And so I show you my exact process of how to do this to really conquer local. All right, services site, complete setup. A lot of you told me earlier you do services sites. And if you do any kind of pay-per-lead, you're thinking about doing pay-per-lead. Lead gen, typically that's going to be services stuff. It's a little harder to do for physical businesses, though not impossible by any means. But you have to really up your game. We talked about the Google guaranteed stuff and how they're rolling out the home services ads that are going to start to take over your ability to get ranked. So you have to really up your game to make sure that you are firmly rooted in the 3-pack as a service business, as a pay-per-lead business, lead gen business. So I go through everything here and I teach you my reverse method for making GMB believe that you service everywhere you just told them you do in your GMB listing. That's what's super important. All right. Somebody saying that's the wrong link. Should be, I think it's projectsupremacy.com /maps liftoff. So Herc,
yeah, I already.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's the right link. I'm not sure why Jim's saying that's the wrong link. That's the right link for sure.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm going to teach you my reverse method, which is very different than if you have a storefront business like a lawyer, dentist, CPA, whatever, right? If you're in the service niche, you've got to actually reverse some of the stuff that you would do to rank those listings. So I'll show you all of that there. Number 5, Possum unfiltering. We went through Possum in detail. I showed you how it's really screwing over local businesses. They're hurting, guys, from Possum. Why? Because they've been hidden. It's not that they're not there, they're hidden, but they don't care. It's as good as they're not there. Filtered means you're dead, you're hidden. And so I have a whole bonus strategy on exactly the steps I take in order, step by step. Here's what to do to get somebody unfiltered. And I get calls all the time from people saying, I was filtered for this keyword, it's gone now, I'm back in maps, thank you, right? So this is really cool stuff. If you're not familiar with Possum and filtering, it's something that can really crush you. If your business, if you were there before and you can't find yourself now, definitely you need to research Possum and figure out that you're probably hidden. And there's steps you can take that will unhide you. All right, bonus 6, my 3-prong network set up for massive relevancy, fast rankings, $9.97 value. So this is really cool, guys. This is something that I tested for 4 years. This is my entire offsite network and exactly how I set it up. And again, it's another proof element. I'm going to show you what I do. Throughout this training, there's a theme. What you do on your in your listing, how you structure your site to prove that, how you structure all your offsite stuff to prove that. What we want is a match, a direct match across the board, so when the crawlers go out there, it's very clear and they want to reward you for the stuff. That's the stuff that I'm teaching here, is how to get rewarded to be seen as the most relevant. So in this video, I'm going to show you the exact network setup that I use to conquer GMB rankings, and it's a really effective approach. All right, number 7, high converting map service sales page. So I've done a lot of copywriting for years, lots and lots for myself to get local clients too, by the way, not just to sell services. I've done lots of copywriting to actually nail down local clients. I've got a huge list of lawyers. How do you think I did that? I've done it by marketing, by proper copywriting, by attracting them to me, by getting them to want to get on the phone with me. So this is an example of something that I've done for maps that you guys can just take and plug in and use it in your system, plug it into your cold outreach email, drive people over there from a phone call, however you want to do it. Maybe you do a video audit and you drive them over to this page, which then converts them to want to do business with you as a standalone service for maps, as a foot in the door service, all that good stuff. This stuff works very, very well. All right, one more bonus, super fast acting. Again, this is one that is probably going to get taken down, guys, literally for my own sanity, and I want to make sure that I can get to your questions. But I've set up a personal email for you. For 8 weeks, you can submit your questions, and I'm going to answer them on video once a week. Every week for 8 weeks, you'll get a growing Q&A archive. You don't have to sit around and think, oh, I'm not going to get my question answered, or there's some sticking point that maybe you're just not quite clear on. I don't want that. But what I also don't like are Facebook groups where they get so big that nobody can answer anything, and then I miss your question. This ensures that you submit to, my personal email address. My assistant gets it all archived for me for the week, and I sit there on camera and record it, and you get your question answered that week. All right. So the cool part is, again, on my site, I charge $800 an hour, and that's at a discount for an hour of consulting time. And my calendar fills up months in advance. So with this bonus, you're literally going to get hours of my time, 8 weeks of being able to essentially communicate directly to my personal email and get your questions answered, so you're not waiting around. Again, I can pull this one at any time. If it starts getting too big, I'm going to have to shut it down. So this is one you're going to want to hop on for sure. All right, guys. So again, if it did all these different things that I promised, how much money do you think you could make if you just landed a few clients, they stick around longer, maybe they pay you more, all this stuff? I've had clients that stick with me for 7 years. They've been around, they won't even make a marketing move without calling me first. Why is that? Because I'm known as the maps guy. I'm known as the person who makes the phone ring, and they don't want to go anywhere else. So type into the chat how much that's worth for you.
Hey Brian, can I?
Yeah.
Brian, sorry, I just want to interrupt. We are getting super close to the 2-hour mark, so can I just ask that? Just try and wrap this up real quick, because there is a bunch of questions that are great questions. And I really want to let people get to the Q&A here, because I know you're going to have some.
Sorry, guys. I'm not watching the watch. I apologize, guys. All right, so let me just dive through this really quickly, and then we'll take Q&A. So again, the final sales price to the public is $997 value. It's not going to go to the public now because I've decided to yank it down 9/15/2017. I don't want it to get too big. On the webinar, you're going to save $500, so you can get it for $497. So anyway, hop in today. You can use PayPal, bill me later if that's appropriate for you. projectsupremacy.com/mapsliftoff. Let's move into Q&A. I apologize for running over there, but let's make that happen.
No problem, guys. Just right before we get into Q&A, I just want to show you guys just the order process, because I do see a couple of people having an issue for some reason. So I'm just going to grab that screen back from you. One sec. Okay. Here we go. Okay, guys, do you see this? When you go to projectsupremacy.com, maps.liftoff, okay, you're going to get to this screen. Do you see my screen, first of all, guys? Give me a 1 real quick. Okay, thank you. When you're here, guys, you can go through all the bonuses and stuff that Brian's kind of went through, but when you're ready to order, just click here. Okay, here's where your coupon is, guys, Herc and Todd 50. Okay, and you're going to enter that coupon right here on your order form. Okay, and then click apply coupon, and that'll bring your price down to $4.47 down here. This coupon's only going to be good for the next day and 8 hours. You can see the timer on there. That's pretty obvious on there. So that's how you're going to be able to order the package. Now, a couple questions I saw coming in. Brian, what are your upsells? I already know the answer to this one, but I just wanted to...
Zero. No upsells, guys. I don't do that shit. I have no upsell.
No upsells, guys, at all. This is it. You get the whole course, all the bonuses for everything. It is true. Brian has talked to Todd and I both with the scheduling of this webinar. We brought it in a lot earlier than we actually wanted to because he literally is taking the course. He's closing the course and probably turning it into a private coaching or a lot higher pricing. So that's not marketing bullshit. You guys know we don't bullshit you. That's actually going to happen. So our offer is probably going to be open about 4 or 5 days. So if you guys are on the fence about this, I suggest you make that decision really, really quickly, especially with the 10% off coupon right here. Get that in the next hour and 8 minutes. So that's all I have to say for now before I get to Q&A. Todd, did you have anything you wanted to add at all?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, one more other thing, Brian, support. Do you have a support link that if anyone's having problems with orders or anything, they can get that to you?
Yeah, if you're having any problems, just email me directly. Like I said, I don't have this massive support team. I handle it, or my assistant handles it. So brian@mapsliftoff.com. And then if you're having issues along the way, like I said, if you hop in, you're going to be able to ask any questions, and I'll get that to you, what that email is once you hop in. So support is brian@mapsliftoff.com. If you have any issues with ordering, let me know, and we'll get that taken care of.
Let me just make this nice and big for you guys to see this. All right, you know I always do this shit here. So, okay, there's your order link. Okay, there's your coupon, and then if you guys are having any issues at all, or you have any issues, hit up Brian directly at brian@mapsliftoff.com. Okay, so let's get into Q&A here. Brian, if you see anything in the question box that you want to take on, go ahead. Otherwise, I'll just start throwing out questions.
Yeah, sure. That sounds good.
I know one that got asked a lot is in the course. Okay, so first of all, course content now. Is it video content? Is it reading content? Can you talk a little bit about what people can expect?
It's almost entirely over my shoulder video content. So I don't leave anything for chance. I've actually set up a test site where I show you exactly, here's how you structure it. Here's how you structure inner pages. If you have a multi-location site, here's how you do that. So everything is over my shoulder. There are a few like resources here and there, but generally it's almost entirely video content based. And guys, it's not like 5 and 10 minute videos. It's some pretty meaty content. You gotta remember, my live training was, anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. And so I want to make sure that you have, we literally have all your bases covered. If you have any questions, obviously you can reach out to me at that private email box, and we'll get them answered. But I want to make sure that you know how to implement this stuff, so this stuff is ready to rock.
Another really good question, I know we kind of covered this in just past webinars and stuff, and I know our people want to know this, is about the actual physical addresses and whether they need to be legitimate or can they be faked for the rank and rent type of style, and what kind of content in your course do you cover in that regard?
Guys, so this is not a course about getting addresses. I do have an entire section, though, on getting addresses and being believable. It's primarily a ranking course, all right? So I will tell you that if you do a lot of pay-per-lead, your ability to get addresses is getting a little harder. But I do have an entire video on how to be believable and where I look for addresses. But do understand that the core of this course is not, how to go out and get addresses all day long. It's what do you do once you get those addresses, if that makes sense. Did that answer the question?
Yep, totally. I covered that one. Does the course run over a period of time, or is it a fast track by watching a series of pre-made videos? I can answer that one. This is probably going to be, all the videos are there for you, Cindy. Learn at your own pace, obviously. I don't think it's drip fed or anything like that. It'll just be kind of like a library of videos with all the content in it, and you go in.
Yeah, I don't like playing that game where it's like, oh, hey, come on in for 8 weeks and learn a little bit here. No, just go at your own pace. And I've had people literally, I'm not exaggerating, probably 3 or 4 people have said this is like Netflix. They binge watch this stuff. I had a guy last night who was getting on a plane to Europe who was like, is there any way for me to download this stuff? I want to watch it while I'm on a plane to Europe. So people binge watch this stuff. I mean, I'm not saying it's as exciting as Netflix, but it will. People just go at your own pace, and if you want to do it all in 24 hours, go for it, or a couple of weeks, whatever. It's up to
you. Keith asks, I'm going to try and answer this one too, but I'm sure you'll have more to say. Somewhere he saw stats on how many calls or a percentage of calls or clicks that come through and being position 1, 2, or 3. Do you have any knowledge on this? And the answer here, Keith, is that there is no answer. How long is a piece of rope? How good is your ad? What is your ad for? What's the search volume on the keywords that are triggering those ads? There's no real stats on how many calls you can expect. If what you're asking is what is the percentage of calls, the differentiation between 1, 2, and 3, I'm assuming 1's going to get the most calls, 2's going to get the next, but that also once again depends on maybe the star ratings are 2 or better in 3. There's no real answer there.
Yeah, that's a great point, is the star rating. So once I get asked this question a lot. When you're in positions 1 through 3, people say, well, how do I get to number 1, and does that matter? Answer, no. What matters at that point is conversion optimization, and what can you do for conversion optimization in maps? Get more and better ratings. So you really have to start to stand out like a sore thumb at that point. It's cool to get into maps, but if you, let's say you only have one ranking and the person above and below you have 30, you really need to up your game. You'll still get calls because you're now at least in play, right? But as between spots 1 through 3, I find it doesn't matter really. What matters is the person that gets the most rankings wins. And by the way, there's a misconception out there that you need a lot of rankings to get into maps. That's not true. It's part of, it helps a little bit, but not much. It's really not a big deal. But what matters is once you're there, you should have a lot of rankings to make sure you're getting called.
What about other countries? How does your content apply to outside of the U.S. and Canada or North America in general?
I have trained people all over the world, Australia, UK, you name it. I've trained people, and it applies equally. It's all the same concepts. The names change a little bit. You might have postal code versus zip code, or all sorts of different little variations in terms of the ways that addresses are formatted. In general, what I find is there's a little less competition in some of the other areas, though not always. But it works very well. I mean, Google treats sites the same way. When you do things in a structured manner, you're going to win every time. So it really is just a matter of, the only difference I see are things like citations. Can you get as many geo citations? My answer is, I'm going to teach you a bunch of things in here to where that's such a small component at this point that you could almost skip it, if that makes sense.
Okay, this is kind of back to the bonuses. I think people are really loving the bonuses, and there's a lot of people that have already gotten in, but they want to know where they can collect those bonuses.
So yeah, exactly. As soon as you log in, the bonuses are carved out in a separate bonus section. So you'll log in, there'll be the core content. I've got a video in there where it'll tell you exactly where to submit those questions I talked about for 8 weeks. I want to make sure you get started right away. For for you binge watchers, if you've got a question tomorrow, I don't want you waiting around for weeks for an answer. Okay, so you'll do that, and then you'll scroll down, and there's an entirely different bonuses area that has the bonuses there.
Let me just see. Right now, guys, I am just trying to ask the questions that are based on people who do want to order. Because we do have another webinar where Brian is going to come back on. He's going to teach a lot more content. So I'm seeing 2 types of questions. I'm seeing content-based questions where, what do I do in this situation, or can I do this in that situation? And I kind of want to leave those for tomorrow's webinar since we have another opportunity to do that. Right now, since we are running so short on time, I do want to kind of get to questions that deal with people who do want to order. but they're just not sure of one thing or another. So if you guys have those types of questions, please go ahead and ask, and we'll answer those. But for everybody that's registered for today's webinar, Brian's going to come back on tomorrow, same time, same place. You're already registered. We'll send you out the emails to let you know. And that's going to be another pure content webinar, tons more content, all about selling as well. So that'll be a really, really good one. Scott, yeah, it was Scott. We are recording, and we will replay the webinar. It'll be the same link actually. Once this link right here, guys, is right now a buy link, but once the webinar is ready and up for the replay, it'll be the same link, so you'll be able there to go and watch the replay, and then I'll just put a button there for anyone that wants to pick up the course. Can you download the videos to your own computer? Who's your video hosting service, Brian?
Everything's on Kajabi, so short answer is no. I mean, obviously I've got to try to protect the content. So no, it's not a downloadable course. But it is very high quality. It's all done through Amazon S3.
Okay, access to bonuses already covered. Mark asking about Project Supremacy 2 and 3. That's kind of email support desk for that. This webinar is not really about supporting Project Supremacy. So just.
But I do go into ways that I use Project Supremacy. I don't mean to interrupt you, but there are several videos on how to use Project Supremacy correctly for schema, and how I use it for image tagging, right? So a lot of people do this whole shorthand thing that they call geotagging photos, when really it's a photo optimization process, and there's probably 5 components to it. So I show you how I use Project Supremacy 2 to completely cut down my time, right? I can literally have an entire site done photo-wise in just a few minutes, and I show you how I do that with PS2. So it's a really integral part of my process there.
Okay, guys, if you're having any, okay, this is for you, Martin. You're asking us to email you login details. This is it. Like I said, support for any issues of purchasing is right here. Okay.
Hey, Herc, I think we lost you there. I think Herc's audio went out, guys. All right, I'm going to try to field some questions here really quickly, see if we missed anything. Can you hear me? Give me one if you can hear me. All right, cool. I'm not sure why it cut off. Let's see here. We'll get into pricing questions tomorrow. Somebody's asking me about pricing. Can you say it depends about pricing, charging clients? I'm going to talk to you about how I price things and really how you can find hidden gems of ways to impress potential clients, of things that they didn't know before, the clients that are hurting who were probably there before who were displaced. So that's the cool part that we're going to cover tomorrow. Let me scroll down a little bit, guys. Give me 1 second. Don't know where Herc went, but we will hope he comes back here. All right. Somebody's asking to repeat the buy link. It's projectsupremacy.com. Hopefully you can see that. I'm not sure. /maps liftoff. Do I know anything about how to get a page verified? Tricky situations. Again, I'm not going to cover this too much. There is some stuff in the course that talks about tricky ways to get verification, but it's not a course on verification. You know, if you do a lot of lead gen, you really got to kind of figure that stuff out. What I do is I do an entire video training on how to be the most believable to get you, to really get you seen in the eyes of Google as, you know, as relevant and not a pay-per-lead player, essentially, not a lead gen player. That's what you want. That's the hard part right there, is that you have to be seen as very, very believable, because you are in an era where you're actively competing with Google Home Services in this case. And do you think they want you there? No. And you've always been in a situation where your competitors will flag you for spam if they suspect. So things like, best San Francisco plumber as your GMB listing don't work anymore, guys. You really have to be seen as a real brand. So I cover all that stuff. Not only that, but I also show you what I view as believable addresses, what they look like. Because believe it or not, if it comes down to it, you will get a GMB rep who will go onto Maps View, onto Street View, and will try to figure out, does this person really exist there or not? You don't want that situation, all right? Okay. I'm just going to scroll a little bit, guys. Sorry. All right. Can we create fake websites, as Herc has taught us, to tweak those sites with your strategy and rent out the spots? Yeah, as long as you're believable and can get an address. I mean, you can use any kind of website. What you need to do is be able to get the structure there. Did we get you back, Herc?
That's bullshit.
We locked you out there. What happened?
I don't know. I got paid for being a jerk off or something. I don't know.
I thought the webinar ended for a second there, and I was like, hey, where'd Herc go? We were just talking about creating like fake websites or lead gen sites. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can get, as long as you can get an address, guys, it's game on, right? The hard part is getting the address. Then, I mean, look at my client Matthew, right, who has 3 out of 3 spots in the Maps pack for a keyword, 2 out of 3 for another. Those are all 3 different sites. That's because he conquers an entire niche with different sites. And he makes and creates separate addresses for each of those in different brands, different personas. So you have to go to great lengths sometimes, but the rewards are huge. All right. Did you want to take back over, Herc? Do you see any other questions there that have come through?
Who's wanting to buy something but still hasn't had a question answered? Give me a 1 if that's you. I want to buy, but my question hasn't been answered. All right, okay, guys, this is your time. Rick, Hussein, Kim, Tim, please ask your questions, and we're going to answer those for you. Sorry about getting booted there. Hopefully this is still going to record the whole thing, too.
Did Tennille come and just drag you out by your long ponytail?
No. Okay, Rick, you offer a service in Australia-wide but only have an office in Sydney. Can this work for you? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it can if I understand your question fully. This training, Rick, isn't something that's geographically sensitive or geographically limited. It's training on how to do this with maps. You might be asking about your business specifically, like you want to buy this training to help your business specifically rank. If that's the case, let me know that. Kath, repeat from question above. Is it possible to get a PayPal email for Brian? Brian, Kath, can you use this support link, please?
Yeah, hit me up and we'll set something up. You can buy through PayPal though directly through that link. If you go to the page, you can use either my processor, which is Stripe, or you can check the PayPal option and check out with PayPal. So you should be able to do it directly from that.
Does this apply to any type of WordPress site? Brian, no, you can build HTML sites and still rank in maps with them. The training will still teach you that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything's always easier from WordPress, but sure, HTML is HTML, and a lot of what I'm teaching is here's the structure and how to, I'm not teaching like coding or anything like that, but it's here's how to force those rankings, and it doesn't matter if it's HTML or WordPress. And I mean, you might have trouble with things like Wix sites and some of that stuff where you can't control the layout all that well. You can't change title tags all that well. Yeah, traditional sites and WordPress sites work just fine.
Okay, Tim Costin, do you cover ranking multiple towns and areas for a local business in your course?
Yes, absolutely. So there's two parts to that question. One is, do you have several actual claimed locations for that business? I cover that scenario. And then I cover how to also make you be seen as the most relevant in that area by creating supporting structures around that. So it's the short of the answer is it's become harder to rank in nearby towns where you don't have a listing. However, where people get snagged is there are still, at least in the US, I'm not sure about in some of the other countries, a lot of what are called unincorporated areas or large neighborhoods where, because we're so geographically mobile driven, remember I showed you guys how like the locality really matters a lot. If you're in a large city, do you think that people type in neighborhoods in a city? Right? Like the example I give is New York or say Chicago. People don't always type Chicago Plumber. They might type Plumber the Loop. That's a neighborhood. Plumber Lincoln Park. So what I'm showing, and these are unincorporated areas where you might not otherwise rank, but in the training I show you how to rank for all those nearby little surrounding suburbs, if that makes sense.
The other point I want to make to that, just in case the question is being asked in a different way, is a lot of people. Okay, let me put it to you guys like this: why do we all do what we do, right? The bottom line of everything that we do, guys, it's not to get leads, it's not to get rankings, it's not to make phone calls ring, it's to make money. We all do this because this is our business and it's to make money, right? So because of that, a lot of people think that more is better sometimes. Well, if I get more, it's going to be better. If I get more areas covered, if I get this site ranking for more keywords, and that's not always the case. So I'm not saying this is what you're saying, Tim. Sometimes it's better, if your end goal is money, to focus on a business that's working and generating leads, or to focus on building on one small one in one small area that's more profitable than it is for trying to do more. Does that make sense? And I'm not sure, and I'm not saying at all that that's what you're asking, but like with something like maps, like what Brian's saying, because it's getting harder and harder and harder, it's better to play smarter than it is to play, bigger and wider.
Yeah, definitely agree.
Let me go back to, because I know there's, so that was Vic, Hussein, right here, bud. Email this link, please. I see your question, but please email this link. Is local supremacy and SerpTech free? No. Trey, that's another question that gets asked quite a bit about these types of things, is how much can you charge? And that depends just on so many factors. That's another question. How long is a piece of rope? Depends on how long a piece of rope is, right? It depends on what niche you're in, how many calls you're getting, the type of calls you're getting, the competition of your niche. It depends on how good of a salesperson you are. It depends on so many things. But typically, I mean, thousands, Trey. If you need like a one-word answer, you can charge clients thousands of dollars for this, because you're going to be bringing them back that much in revenue. A percentage of the revenue that you're going to give to them is what's fair to charge, put it that way, I guess. So if you know how to figure out what the expected revenue that you can generate for a client is, you can figure out what a good price to charge them for that is. Let me see if I answered those other questions. Let me stop for a second too, because there's something here that's really, really cool. I still see there's literally hundreds of people on this webinar. So for that reason, I'm assuming you guys are loving this content. Give me a 1 if that's why you're still here. You're just really loving what Brian's teaching. I just want to see if that's what's going on here.
It's crazy to see this many people still on a webinar 2.5 hours in.
Yeah, it's really awesome too. And it just goes to show, like this is something that you guys really, really want to learn. And Brian really is, guys, one of the best people to teach it. I'm not a maps expert. I won't talk for Todd. I'm not a maps expert. I'm not comfortable in trying to teach you guys maps. I've ranked in maps, but when you get a guy like Brian on, you know what I mean, who's been doing it for so long, and he's kind of, you've heard him talk on the webinar. This has really been his focus, and he's a lot like Matt Diggity, who's more into like ranking affiliate sites and PBNs. He's very testy, meaning, I test things. I ask questions and I go out and test. And I can't. How many times have I said that to you guys? Like the best SEOs are the guys that test and test and test and test and get answers. and that's really what Brian is, but his focus has been on maps. So he's the maps expert of the group, guys. There's not going to be anyone better to learn from, in my opinion, on how to do Google Maps than Brian. So this course for, right now, $447 with the coupon is a really, really great course that I think you guys should pick up, and trust that you have the right person that you're learning from as well. How long does it take to move a business into the 3-pack, and does it require a new website with your optimization on it? Number one, how long does it take to move a business? Okay, duplicate question. Patrick, how long is a piece of rope? Once again, there's no hard answer. It's not like we say, look, it takes 17 days to get into the 3-pack. That's just not how things work. Okay, every website, every niche is different. Your optimization skills are going to be different than other people's. Your keywords are different. The amount of people trying to rank for those keywords in that niche, in that city, there's so many factors, right? And I think what you guys are getting at by asking questions like that is the bottom line. How fast can I be into profit is what you're really asking. And tell me if I'm right there, Patrick. You know what I mean? And even that that question I saw people asking earlier, like how long will the course be available, and how long can I turn this into a profit? We can't even tell you that, unfortunately, because we don't know you. We don't know if you're going to sit in front of your TV tomorrow night or tonight and watch, Game of Thrones, or are you going to dig into the course and start learning and start applying? We don't really know you, so we can't tell you, you know what I mean? But I can tell you this. It's good content. It's actionable content. If you go through the content and you do your job and you work at it, you're going to get results. And that's all that should really matter. It's not how fast am I going to get results, because that's impossible to tell. It's will I get results? Yes. If you follow the training and you stick to it, you will get results.
People are getting just insane results and crazy results. I get texted, I get messages all day long from people who've gone through the content. And the key is action. You've got to put it into place and make it happen, right? You can't just watch the content. And that's why I set up that extra bonus. I wanted to make sure if you have any sticking points, any issues where you're like, oh, I don't quite understand this. I don't want you waiting around going, I'm just never going to get to it. I really love it when people put stuff into action, because that's when I get all these messages that, holy shit, this worked like crazy, right? But it's the people that take the action, so that's a hard question to answer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's impossible.
If you already have a site that's kind of ranking, it's already sitting on page 2 or 3, it can happen very quickly, very, very quickly. If you're just starting, it can take a little more time. Just really depends. But the cool stuff is the stuff in between, where you've had these clients or pay-per-lead sites that just won't seem to budge, and you apply the stuff from the course, and that's the kind of stuff that just goes gangbusters.
GB, he's saying, do we necessarily need to buy ServTech and Local Supremacy along with having PSV2 for this to work? No, absolutely not. Here's the thing, guys. Here's how these all play well together, okay? If you want to learn how to rank a site in Maps, get the course, right? That's all you have to do. Buy Maps Liftoff, and you're going to learn everything you need to know about how to build a website, register a business, and get it ranked in the 3-pack, okay? But part of that course content covers proper on-site optimization and structure in order to increase your chances of getting into that 3-pack, okay? It's going to make you more efficient. One of the tools to help you with that structure is Project Supremacy version 2, okay? You can pound a nail into a piece of wood with a rock or a hammer. Okay, one's that you're going to get the job done either way. One's just more effective than the other. Brian uses Project Supremacy because it's a tool built for that type of content and structure optimization that he needs to do in order to get the results. But is it necessary? No. That's where PSV2 comes into this. Where Local Supremacy and ServTech come into it, guys, is pushing more leads to existing properties that are there. So you already know that when you rank a legitimate site in Google, in the organic side of things, okay, in the top 10 outside of the maps listing, outside of the ads, you're going to get some traffic. But when you rank in the maps above organic, you're going to get more traffic. So Local Supremacy and ServTech, if you get yourself into a situation with Brian's course where you learn how to build a site rank it naturally, rank it in the maps. It's going to get a lot of calls, okay? Work on that site, get it, a ton of phone calls, then you take SerpTech, and then you take local supremacy, and you start building out other sites that push traffic to the legitimate site, to the maps listing, and that's just an accelerant to everything that you're going to do. But it all starts, guys, with the course. Get the course, learn how to rank in maps. Project Supremacy is going to help you with structuring your data. Local Supremacy and SerpTech are going to help you accelerate your traffic and leads. John, try refreshing that link, put it in again. It should not be a login page. You are probably cached. Try also in a incognito mode using that same link. John Quackenbosch. Okay, cool. Is Maps Liftoff a project in progress? Are you planning on adding more?
Yeah, I am actually. It is a project in progress because Maps never stops, right? There's always some new update. So I've already added new videos in there. I keep up with all the latest stuff, and as I test things that work, I add stuff. So yeah, it is a work in progress. I mean, I can't sit here today and say 3 years from now I'm going to continue to update it, but I've been updating it very frequently. It's only been out for a couple months now, and like Herc said, I'm shutting it down on the 15th. It's just I just want to be able to focus on more one-on-one stuff without necessarily being on the phone for 4 and 5 hours. I love doing that. I love training people, but it's just like it's a killer on my voice. As you can tell, I don't have that strong of a voice to begin with. But yeah, the course itself is frequently being updated.
Okay, a lot of questions with PSV2 and PSV3. Will it work with V3, guys? Basically, I don't know how to explain this the best way. I thought I kind of covered it. The course content with Maps Liftoff it's educational. Okay, it's not a piece of software. It's an education in how to do things. Project Supremacy version 2 or version 3 are tools. They're software tools. They help you implement strategies in a more automated way. So PSV2, PSV3, yeah, they're a little bit different, but as far as the things that you need to do with Maps Liftoff, things like schema, things like geotagging, shit like that, it's in both versions, right? So if you know how to use PSV2, if you know how to use PSV3, all you have left to complete the trifecta there is the education of what to do with those tools to get Maps to work. Maps is the training. Okay, the Maps course is the training, how to get a site built, how to rank in the 3-pack. PSV2, PSV3, tools to help you do it once you understand the education. Hopefully that makes sense. Which kind of leads me to a question. I know Brian kind of went over the things that are important. I'm going to put Brian on the spot a little bit here, and you guys will probably love it. Brian, do you think tomorrow you could show any site that is using V2 and we'll log into it and we'll look at V2 and what you've done with it?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. I've got a.
Would you guys like that?
Not only that, I'm going to show you how the exact same site, how you guys can use the techniques that I'll teach you tomorrow to go and make some money. Like literally on the spot too, right? I'm going to show you live how we can use that same site and be able to go out and use the same concepts to kind of like wow people on the phone where nobody else does this stuff, earn their trust immediately and make money from it. But yeah, I've got a site we can log into tomorrow that has P2 all set up on it, using it, ready to roll. Okay,
cool, but we're only going to do that. There's 241 people on the call, so we're only going to do that if we get 241 yeses right now.
Exactly. Now you're putting everybody on the spot. Okay.
Now I'm putting everybody on the spot. I want to see who's still here and who's not here and who's actually listening.
People does an offer. You guys still out there? Come on.
That's why I ask questions like this. I just want to, because I look at the attentiveness of people. Awesome. Wow. Awesome. Okay, cool. We'll do that for you guys tomorrow. We'll actually peel back a site and really look at PSV2. The other thing I want to say about PSV3, guys, because I know a lot of you people have that. anyone that has PSV3 should have V2 because we only sold it to V2 members, but somehow people sneak onto webinars. It's awesome. So anyone that has V3 but doesn't have V2, send us a message and I'll get you V2. Okay, send a support ticket to V3 support. Since you don't have V2, send it to V3 support. And Brian actually uses V2, but he hasn't really been able to dig into V3 yet. So I'm going to work with Brian to show him V3, and hopefully one day in his course, once he understands how V3 works, maybe he'll be able to update, and maybe he'll like V3, and maybe he'll be able to update his course with how he does everything that he does, but with V3 as well.
Definitely.
Because I definitely want you to see V3, Brian, from the inside. Yeah, V2 is still a good plugin, guys. V2 is still awesome. V2's quick. Yeah, it works. And we've always said, you know, we'll always continue with it. V3 is just a bigger beast. Yeah, Rick, we're going to definitely be diving into that. I had to get married, so I was really gone the whole summer, to be honest with you. What about V1? V1 is deprecated. That we do not support anymore, Adam. V1 is basically V1. All V1 is a project planner. So there's no schema. There's no nothing. I can't even believe you have V1. That's awesome. Tina, if you're you got the email. So support at Project Supremacy. The same email that support at Project Supremacy is or supremacy.freshdesk.com. I just don't want to write that on here because then we'll have people confused. Yes, Reggae. I'm not going to mention your question out loud, but just search for it. It's free on WordPress. Your wife is getting on me. You guys have to call it. It's okay. You can catch the replay and make your wife happy. It's okay. We're pretty far into this 2.5 hours, guys. Anyways, so let's end it there. There's such a ton more questions. We might even we'll talk to Brian. We might even add a third webinar. I don't know, just because the response to this has been so amazing.
Yeah,
and we haven't even answered half the questions. So let's end it there. Same time tomorrow. If you're on this webinar, you're already registered for tomorrow's webinar. So just watch for the email. It's the same join link at the same time.
Yeah.
You guys, thank Brian for spending so much time with us. Obviously, 2.5 hours now.
I appreciate you having me on, and look forward to tomorrow, guys. We'll show you how to make some money with this stuff.
Yeah, definitely be here for tomorrow. I hope we have as many people or more on tomorrow because we'll go into it a lot deeper as well.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Sounds great. See everybody tomorrow. Same time, same place.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.